Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Monday, April 12th, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who joins us here today, whether you're listening live or listening through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are gratefully available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the red and white bullseye, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. The book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? That chapter of that book contains a narrative description of the primary tool in this work, the Reality Management Worksheet. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself, which is a tool I have been using for over 16 years now to improve my life, manage my emotions, and turn any negative emotion into part of the infallible guidance system that each of us was given. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through the worksheet process or called to ask clarifying questions about it, or given powerful testimonials about the positive impact of actually applying this tool in their lives. You can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness and get access to a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet process, an abbreviated version of that process, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we encourage people to do that soon and often, because when they do, it usually raises questions. And that's one of the primary reasons we're here 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, in our current format. So you can give us a call at 563-999-3581. and press 1, and it'll put a little question mark by your phone number. And in turn, I will turn on your microphone, and we can have a conversation. This is the 102nd day of the year, and we are doing the Course in Miracles workbook lessons. Today's lesson reads, I will share God's will for my happiness. And in the previous 2 lessons for the weekend, the lessons were fairly short, and Saturday's lesson read, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation, because we're all part of this creation. And then yesterday's lesson read, God's will for me is perfect happiness. Again, as I learn to accept and allow the flow of life, and then decide to add only positive emotional energy and positive impact to that flow of life energy, everything gets better because we're connected to everyone and everything. Today's lesson is, I share God's will for my happiness, for happiness for me. The commentary reads, you do not want to suffer. You may think it buys you something, and may still believe a little that it buys you what you want. Yet, this belief is surely shaken now, at least enough to let you question it, and to suspect that it really makes no sense. That belief hasn't gone as yet, but it lacks the roots that once secured it tightly to the dark and secret hidden places of your mind. Today we try to loosen its weakened hold still further, and to realize that pain is purposeless, without a cause, and with no power to accomplish anything. It cannot purchase anything at all. Pain offers nothing and does not exist, and everything you think it offers you is lacking in existence like itself. You've been a slave to nothing. Be you free today to join the happy will of the Creator. For several days we will continue to devote our periods of practicing to exercises planned to help you reach the happiness God's will has planned and placed in you. Here is your home, and here is your safety. Here is your peace, and here there is no fear. Here is salvation. Here is rest at last. Begin your practice periods today with this acceptance of the Creator's will for you. I share the Creator's will for happiness for me, and I accept it as my function now. Then seek this function deep within your mind, for it is there, awaiting but your choice. You cannot fail to find it when you learn it is your choice, and that you share the Creator's will. Be happy, for your only function here is happiness. You have no need to be less loving to creation's offspring than he whose love created him as loving as himself. Besides these hourly 5-minute rests, pause frequently today to tell yourself that you have now accepted happiness as your one function. And be sure that you are joining with the Creator's will in doing this. I share God's will for happiness for me, and I accept it as my function now. Pam Grout's book, A Course in Miracles Experiment, chapter 102 reads, "Old beliefs are going down." She quotes Ludwig Bemelman as saying, "And to the tiger in the zoo, Madeline just said, poo-poo." Pam writes, NPR recently ran a report about Madeline, Ludwig Bemelman's plucky heroine, who you may remember lives in, quote, "an old house in Paris covered in vines," close quotes. I read all the Madeline books to my daughter when she was young. We both loved them. Being reminded of Madeline's courageous poo-poo to the tiger in the zoo made me smile, because that's exactly what Lesson 102, I share the dude's will for my happiness, that's exactly what this lesson tells me to say to old belief systems that so insistently wave their hands in the back of the classroom. Those beliefs that are on constant alert, looking for ways to sabotage my happiness. The old beliefs are stubborn. They claim to be working on my behalf. They adamantly insist they're keeping things in control so I can be happy. That tired old belief system is relentless, telling me that there's always some violation, some person out there who is messing up, who's doing it wrong. Of course, it's never me. So today, as I channel Madeline and brush aside the scary tiger and all my other judgments, I realize there's no reason to delay, no reason to limit, no reason to wait an instant longer for the endless peace and joy and miracles to which I am entitled. 5 minutes every hour, I will remember I share creation's will for my happiness. So that's our Course in Miracles lesson for today, and the corollary reading from Pam Grout's book, A Course in Miracles Experiment. And we have 49 minutes left for conversation. 563-999-3581 and press 1. How can we support you today? I'm struck by synchronicity at times, because another book that I've been reading as I go along with this one is the Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And near the end, she has a whole segment about control. And it's resonating in my mind with this lesson and the idea that when I align with that flow of life and the Creator's will for the way life is unfolding, and assume that my purpose is to be happy, then oddly things work out. The section of her book is titled Seconds. And she writes, sometimes when heated conflict arises between my wife Abby and me, we stop talking, we take a breath and say to each other, quote, okay, let's not first marriage this, let's second marriage this, close quotes. What we mean is, let's not go on autopilot here. Let's use what we've learned and apply it. Let's be careful and wise and put our egos aside and remember that we are on the same team. Now that we know better, let's do better. I would have described myself as the spiritual director of my first marriage. I had the vision for our plot, and my husband screwed it up. I now understand that this is because each person has their own plot. No one can be a supporting actor in someone else's storyline. They can pretend to, but they will always have subplots brewing inside and unfolding on the outside. I am very controlling. I want to control things. This is because I am afraid. Things feel so precarious. When I was young, I made myself feel safer by controlling my food and body. I still do that. But as I got older and became a wife and mother, I found another thing to try to control to create safety: my people. Since life is scary and precarious, controlling people I love felt like the responsible thing to do. In addition to the fear factor, there is something else that leads me to want to control things, and that is my belief that I am very smart and creative. I really do believe I have very good ideas and that people would do best if they got on board. This kind of control I call leadership. For a long while, I have controlled and led my people and called that love. I, quote, loved, close quote, my people to a bloody pulp. My role in the lives of the people I love has been as follows. Quote, I exist to make all your hopes and dreams come true. So let's sit down and take a look at this comprehensive list of hopes and dreams I have created for you. I've been paying very close attention, and trust me, I see you, and I know better than you know yourself. I know you better than you know yourself. You can do anything I put your mind to, so let's begin, close quotes. But in truth, we cannot feel and know and imagine for another person. This is what I'm trying to understand. The person who is teaching me this is my wife. My wife is uncontrollable. I love my wife more wildly than I have ever loved a grown human in my life. Before I met her, I wasn't even all that afraid of dying. Now, the thought of death panics me daily, not because of death itself, but because of the idea of not being with her. Death, to me, is just the ultimate FOMA, fear of missing Abby. Since I love Abby the most, it follows that I have to control her the most. I want to make all of my dreams for her come true. I just really want my best for her. So to that end, I have relentless good ideas to share with her about what she should do and wear and eat and how she should work and sleep and read and listen. But every time I try to share my good ideas, overtly or covertly, she somehow knows what I'm doing and calls me out on it. And categorically, she rejects my efforts. She does this gently. She says things like, "I see what you're doing there, babe. I love you for the effort, but no. Thank you, I'm good." For the first year of our marriage, I assumed that this was just a fresh, exciting challenge. I assumed that my job was to find new ways to approach her. Here's an actual conversation with my sister during my first year of marriage in response to the problem of my wife Abby's continuing to insist that she was the boss of herself. Me. Okay, I hear you, but what if I actually know that my idea is better for her than her idea is for her? Should I just pretend to think her idea is good? Should I just smile and let her try her idea so we can get to mine when hers doesn't work so well? How long will I have to carry on with this time-wasting charade? My sister replied, "Oh, my God. Okay, Glennon, if that's how you have to think of it, then yes, try that. Try to fake it until you make it." So that is what I did. I just smiled and faked it. I let her lead, but only because it was my undercover leadership strategy. I decided that we would try things her way for a while until we both saw the light together. For a solid year, we were spontaneous when I preferred a plan. We were trusting of people when I was skeptical. We took big risks even when I had already calculated that the odds were against us. We let the kids try things I was sure they'd fail at and then resent us forever. We lived for a while as if life were less precarious than it is, as if people were better than they are, as if our kids were tougher than I believed them to be, and as if, quote, things generally work themselves out, close quotes. It was reckless and ridiculous and irresponsible. Things do not work themselves out. I work them out. And if I don't, there is no working out at all. There's just chaos. I took lots of deep breaths and started a daily yoga practice to deal with my anxiety, and I waited for things to fall apart so I could save us. I kept waiting. Damned if things didn't generally just keep working out. Damned if I didn't start to feel happier. Damned if our children didn't become braver, kinder, and more relaxed. Damned if life didn't just get more beautiful. It was annoying as hell, honestly. I really think that it is possible now that Abby has good ideas. I'm beginning to unlearn what I used to believe about control and love. Now I think that maybe control is not love. I think that control might actually be the opposite of love, because control leaves no room for trust, and maybe love without trust is no love at all. I'm beginning to play with the idea that love is trusting that other people feel, know, and imagine things too. Maybe love is respecting what your people feel, trusting what they know, and believing that they have their own unseen order for their lives pressing through their own skin. Maybe my role with the people I love is not imagining the truest, most beautiful life for them, then pushing them toward it. Maybe I'm supposed to ask what they feel and know and imagine. And then, no matter how different their unseen order is from mine, ask them what I can do to support their vision. Trusting people is terrifying. Maybe if love is not a little scary and out of our control, then it is not love at all. It is wild to let others be wild. Over the weekend, I was wrestling with my website and my blog and the redoing the website and getting the blog to post, etc. And so I was finally able to publish a blog post that I had written in response to some conversations last week in group and in patient sessions. The title of the blog post is, "What do you mean all events are neutral?" And I wrote, "In the work we do in Mindshifter support groups and on Mindshifter's radio podcast, our main focus is on observing how we create our emotions and our responses to the events that unfold in our world. The goal is for me to be able to accept 100% responsibility for the emotions and reactions I create. Part of the observation in this process is to realize the capital T truth taught in most spiritual and philosophic tradition. Quote, all events are neutral," close quotes. Shakespeare has Hamlet say, "Why then, 'tis none to you, for there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Also in The Way of Mastery, The Way of the Heart, Lesson 9 is titled, quote, "All events are neutral," close quotes. I found myself on the Mindshifters radio podcast the other day saying, "You will never walk into the forest and walk right into a cloud of fear, the way you can walk into a cloud of gnats or a cloud of mosquitoes or a fog bank. This is because fear does not exist outside of the human mind that creates it. The human who walks into the forest or wherever brings the fear-creating device with them into that situation. That fear-creating device is the conscious, rational, logical mind, that part of our mind that does what David Bohm calls sustained incoherence. By creating our negative emotional states and then blaming them on something outside of itself, then deciding to think its way to a solution using the very process that created the problem. Byron Katie in her work and her books talks about how it is possible to look at everything that happens as though it is perfect, just the way it is. How can you know this? Because it happened. There is no going back into the past to change what happened. So when I argue with it, when I say it shouldn't have happened, when I label it bad or tragic, I'm creating more pain for myself. And I'm focusing on things I cannot control. Michael Singer teaches us that the physical universe as we experience it has been moving through the creative process, according to the best estimates of our scientists, for 13.8 billion years. Yes, every atom, molecule, organism, structure, person you have ever had contact with is the result of the process of creation unfolding since the Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago. Everything is unfolding in that creative process. And when a human mind decides to label that process or its results as bad, wrong, or tragic, that takes a special kind of arrogance. It also guarantees additional pain and frustration, since the human mind is not going to be able to undo what creation has done. Here are some of the comments and arguments we often hear when this topic comes up. Oh, so what then? We're just supposed to sit back and do nothing? Oh, so we should just allow things and everything that we see unfold and never take a corrective action? Well, then, if all events are neutral, why would we do anything to change anything at all? Well, what is the point of life if we just sit back and watch and never make a judgment or try to take a corrective action? Well, this philosophy would lead to the destruction of society as we know it and even greater pain and suffering. I have heard each of these reactions and many more. The point of this teaching, all events are neutral, is to recognize that the external events in our lives do not create our emotions, and they do not create our experience of life. Our experience of life is created by the way we choose to interpret and then react to the events in our lives. The capital T truth of this is there to be observed, and yet most of us have been taught the opposite. Most of us have been taught that events are tragic and that what someone else just said is offensive or insulting or hurtful. The capital T truth is that words only have the meanings we give them. And if we choose a neutral interpretation of the events which unfold or the words that are spoken to us, we create a neutral impact. When we choose a negative interpretation, we create a negative impact. Because we are taught the opposite of this, we tend to create perceptions which, quote, prove, close quotes, prove to us that the outside events and actions of others are what creates our emotions and our experience. The capital T truth can be observed is that we are participating in the creation of our experience of life and each of the emotions we feel. When we participate by interpreting the situation negatively and then add a negative emotional energy or defensiveness to the interaction, we make it more intensely negative for ourselves. When we interpret the situation in a neutral or positive way, we will add a positive or constructive energy to the situation and create a more positive experience for ourselves. One of the bottom line observations I teach in my therapy work is, quote, if I have a negative thought about myself or someone else, or a negative emotion that's active in my awareness, I can instantly know three things. The first is, this thought or emotion is a lie or based on a falsehood. The second is, this thought or emotion is an old tape playing in my mind. It's not about the current situation. And the third thing I can know is, if I act from this negative thought or negative emotion, I will simply make my current situation and experience worse. I cannot hope to improve a situation by adding a negative emotional energy to it. So, I invite everyone to experience this for yourself and experiment with it for yourself. Rather than engage in a philosophic argument or even a protracted discussion about whether something is bad or wrong or tragic, etc., simply choose to dismantle the negative emotions, the tension, or judgment that you are creating, in quotes, about that situation. And we teach a host of free tools for doing this on the Mind Shifters Radio podcast. And then when you've restored a state of calm to your mind, you may choose to ask, what is mine to do here? Or, how can I assist in this situation? Or, how can I bless myself or someone else in this moment? My personal experience has been that this process has dramatically improved my experience of life and resulted in my spending only a tiny fraction of my time in the negative emotional states compared to what I experienced before learning this work and applying this process. We come from love. We are made of love. We are love. Everything else is false. So that's my offering for today, and we have 29 minutes left for comments, conversations, answers, questions, refutations, soliloquies. 563-999-3581. Does it make sense? Why would I read the Untamed work? Why would I add the blog post? Ellen, what's your comment?
Hi, Dr. Tim. I just love everything you just said, and I'm in such agreement with you. This lesson today, I didn't really get it so much when I first read it, but when I started practicing it, I saw, I looked back in my mind's eye to when I was a little child and how I experienced all these traumas they were traumas to me, I really saw how that it was me thinking I shouldn't be treated this way. I should be loved. I should be given affection. And that I've been holding on to this idea, I think pretty much unconsciously, but now I'm really becoming aware of it, that until all of that gets righted, I can't be happy. So I was able to really clearly see that it's myself that has been withholding my happiness from me and not those situations. I mean, they happened. I can't undo them. And there's nothing that needs to be righted. The only thing that needs to happen for me to be happy is for me just to let all that go and choose to be happy. And it was just amazing how clear that became to me, that it always is. And it was that one line, I think, in the lesson where it says, recognize that it's your choice to be happy and finding it. Like, how can you not find it when you recognize it's your choice? And that is what really kind of speaks to me, is that no matter what happens, I can choose to be happy. I don't have to wait for the weather to get better or for someone to apologize to me or whatever it is, whatever grievance I've been holding on to. I don't need to wait if I decide I need to wait for any of those things to happen, then I'm making myself unhappy. It's not the situation. I'm doing that. So, yeah, this is just so freeing to have this recognition that it's always my choice.
And if you tap into the Glennon Doyle writing, it is so different as to be, because it's so unique, it tends to be scary at first. It tends to go against everything that we've been conditioned to believe is supposed to be happening or that we should do to allow. We shouldn't allow. We should control and fix and get it right. And yet
exactly.
That's the very process that creates the vast majority of our pain and suffering.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's so conditioned into us. It is just, it's mind-blowing to recognize that this is so deeply ingrained. I mean, we don't even question it for the most part until we get to a certain point in our spiritual journey and recognize that all this efforting to try and control things is exactly what's kind of hiding your happiness from you. And it's just such a relief.
Yeah, it's a huge leap for most of us who've been trained to assume that whatever happens is okay, and since it's already happened and I don't have control over that, it is useful for me to shift the focus of my energy to the things I do have some control over. Like, okay, what response am I going to choose? How can I get a loving response going here? How can I get positive emotional state flowing in me and add that energy to the life that's unfolding? And it's the opposite of what we're trained to do, so it takes a little practice, and yet many people, Glennon Doyle is just one of them, find out when they commit to that, whether they feel like they're being forced into it or not, they find out that it's far more productive than trying to control things they have no control over. Because the very first thing that happens when I try to control things I have no control over is I create the sense of being out of control. I create that sense of chaos by the very dynamic of focusing on things I have no control over.
And how about things like that you see as flaws that, like I I recognized again also this morning that, I live in this, beautiful historic home, but it's got a lot of flaws. It's been lived in for over 100 years, and there's so much beauty, and yet my mind is always seeking out the flaws instead of focusing on the beauty. And I saw how unproductive that is, what a waste of time that is, but also then by seeing, this needs to be fixed, or even if it's just cosmetic, it doesn't really need to be fixed, but, I would like it to look better than that. Just all of those kinds of thoughts create such a burden on me that I can't be happy until that is fixed, and I don't have to look at that. It's like, wow, look at that.
Well, if you catch that thought, that's a really good catch.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you recognize that that's leaving you feeling less than joyful and loving and motivated and productive in the moment, then you might want to practice releasing that thought.
It just feels good for me to release that thought. It's such a relief that, it's not true. It's not true that I'll feel better because I have fixed that. That's not what makes me feel better. Because I've been living my whole life that way.
Yeah. And there are those of us who have been introduced to that pattern of thought earlier in life and realize that, I'll be happy when is a trap.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll be happy when I get out of grade school. I'll be happy when I get out of high school. I'll be happy when I can drive. I'll be happy when I finally get out of college. I'll be happy when I finally find the right partner and get married. I'll be happy if I finally make it $100,000 a year. Whatever it is, it's an absolute trap.
Yes.
Because it never lasts. Whatever happiness comes, we don't even realize that it's self-generated, and it's fleeting because we've tied it to a thing which is temporary. It's one of the other wisdoms from the Way of Mastery that says everything that begins in time ends in time. So everything that is this energy that's been so lowered in its vibration as to be perceptible to the senses is going to be in that state for a limited period of time. So if I've tied my happiness to something that has a physical manifestation, then I've tied my happiness to something that is limited in its existence.
Exactly, and this goes right back to the conversation I think we had on Friday about where that real value lies, and it's never in the physical form. It's in the behind. And so recognizing that and that where it came from can't ever be lost, so it's always available. Even if it's not appearing, something isn't appearing in form now, it's never lost. It's just gone out of physical appearance, and it's still exactly where it always has been. It's just we can't see it now.
Well, and the other aspect of it is to recognize that we are actually capable of creating our emotions moment to moment. One of the teachings from Abraham says, your most important creation in each moment is your emotion in that moment. Another of those teachings says, if you think about why you want something, anything, it's because of the emotional state you plan to experience once you get it, whether it's the partner or the house or the car or whatever. And, to bridge into some of Guy Finley's teachings, he says, listen, how can the thing that's responsible for your happiness in that same instant be responsible for creating your fear. Because if you tie your happiness to getting this thing or that, then as soon as you get it, you have to be afraid that you might lose it. And you have to get defensive and protective. So back to Abraham. Abraham says, rather than thinking about getting this thing so you can have this feeling, look for the feeling you want to have when that thing happens and create that feeling in your life today. Then if you still want that thing, that car, that relationship, that dwelling, etc., go get it. But then you will know with great certainty that your happiness with this good feeling, this satisfying emotion, this sense of gratification is not tied to that thing. And so you won't be terrified of losing it.
Right.
The thing comes and goes, and you're fine because your emotional state, your satisfaction, your happiness, your purpose in life is not tied to that thing which comes and goes. So if I can learn at greater and greater levels to realize that whatever unfolds is perfect the way it unfolds, and what is mine to do is to choose the emotion that I experience in response to that and the action I take in response to that. And when I recognize that that's happening and I'm always choosing to add to whatever unfolds around me, and my choice is really, do I add a happy, loving, positive, productive energy to this unfolding of life around me, or do I add a judging, restricted, angry, bitter, resentful energy to it? And when I wake up to that, for me, the choice becomes very, very easy. But if I think, as the Glennon Doyle writing was talking about, that I know what's best for life, I know what's best for other people, I know how things should be happening, and this isn't it, then I don't get to go with the flow, and I don't have the option of allowing and surrendering and then adding positive energy to the events. Because I'm busy fighting against it. I'm busy labeling it as bad or wrong or tragic or catastrophic. And in that label, my response is already predetermined. Right? If it's bad, if it's negative, it's catastrophic and tragic, then I have to fight against it. Then I have to add negative emotions to it.
Putting the label on it is key. I mean, what I choose to call something. And so I just recognize now that no matter what happens, it's exactly what's in my best interest. And I have no idea what my best interest is. That's one of the teachings from the Course that I love so much. You can't possibly know. So just trust that whatever comes, that's in your best interest. Say, oh, okay. And I don't have to know why. Maybe at some point I'll see why, it'll become clear to me, but I don't have to know why. And
it's okay if I never understand why. Because there's a lot more going on here than my conscious logical mind will ever comprehend.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just railing against something last week that suddenly today I realized, wow, what a blessing that was. It's so wonderful. Just, catching ourselves doing it so that it doesn't last for any longer. What Pam Grout was saying in the reading you did from her book today. I need not wait a moment longer. But I have to have that recognition, and then once I have the recognition, then it's like, okay, put an end to it right there. I was reading in Byron Katie's book that people tell her that, like her truth, which is that, God is good and God is everything. God is reality. People say, well, it can't be, it can't be that simple. And she's like, hey, if you make that your last story, have a wonderful life. To believe anything else is to have some pain and suffering in your life. So I like that. Make that your last story, because she says in the end, even that isn't true, but hey, live with that. Live with that as your story. Everything is good. Everything comes from God, and everything is good. And try that one on. See how that one feels. Certainly the story I've been living with, that this and this and that and the other thing shouldn't be happening, shouldn't have happened, shouldn't have, whatever. That story certainly doesn't feel good, so why not try something else?
Yeah, and the thing that we aren't taught that is so important to learn is that it is the choice of story, of interpretation and meaning, and then choice of response that is what creates my experience of life, not the actual flow of life. Because I am so many levels removed from the actual flow. And I'm removed from it by the thoughts and the conscious logical mind and the judgments and the control efforts. And we aren't taught that that's what's removing me from the flow. We aren't taught that that very process that I think is going to lead to my joy and happiness and satisfaction and safety is the thing that's creating my suffering. And that's one of the primary keys in this work for me.
Yeah, and I was seeing
how to observe that process.
Yeah. And I was seeing how, like, all the flaws that my eyes, want to seek out. Like, I always had this, like, kind of underpinning belief that they somehow reflected on me. And that was my great need, to fix all the flaws, because if there's a flaw out there, there must be a flaw in here. So seeing that, wow, it simply isn't true. And that if other people, see the flaws, then that's going to be then they're going to think badly of me, just the way I was thinking badly of me. And it's just amazing how punishing that is, and we do it or at least I was doing it without even recognizing it. And there's no, like the lesson, today's lesson says, there's no cause for any of that.
Yeah, in the absolute sense. Yeah, and the cause for my experience of life and all my emotions is inside me, which is the opposite of what my culture teaches me. Right. One of the teachings from the Way of Mastery is all events are neutral. My thoughts about those events are not neutral at all, but the events themselves are neutral. But I'm going to create my experience of life with those thoughts. Right. Mike Dooley says, thoughts become things, so choose the good ones.
Yeah. Well, one of the lessons in the Course earlier on was, I have no neutral thoughts.
Exactly.
And that's just becoming more and more clear to me. And the recognition, yes, those thoughts are what is creating my experience. Nothing that is life happening is creating my experience of life happening. Just my thinking about it.
Yep, nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
Yeah.
So, any other comment or question that we can entertain for you today?
No, I just wanted to chime in and thank you for everything that you said. It's just, it's just very in line with where I'm at right now, and I appreciate it's almost like everything that I was recognizing this morning, then you kind of like stated it all. So I appreciate that. It just reconfirms, because sometimes all the realizations and things that I'll get, I usually are in the morning, and then by late afternoon, evening, I've forgotten them all. Like they're just gone. So it's nice to get a confirmation and, just another like, oh yeah, that's right. I did have that realization this morning. Let me stay with that. Let me hold on to that rather than these thoughts that things need to change.
Yeah, it's good to have the reminders. And it's good to, if you're having that kind of insight in the morning, it might be good for you to, write them down or speak them into an audio recorder and have them there, because you're probably tapping into some wonderful stuff.
Yeah, I do have a journal beside my bed, and I used to write in it almost every morning, or at least whenever I would have like a realization, an insight, and I've kind of gotten out of the habit. I mean, if it's something like hugely major, I will probably do it, but it is good. It is good because then I can go back and I can remind myself. But when I was doing that regularly, what I found was that I was just coming back around to the same realizations over and over and over again. It's like I'd forget about them, and then they would come back, and I'd write about them again. I'd be like, wait a minute. And I'd realize that, 2 notebooks ago, I wrote about this very thing, So I don't know if anyone else has that experience, but and I don't know if I'm just getting it at a deeper level, or it truly is just a forgetting and a remembering. But I found that I just keep coming around, and then I get to a point where I feel like I can't go any further than this. Like, this is it. It's like, okay, I'm done.
Well, and some would say that, the enlightenment process is nothing more than actively remembering and observing those very simple truths more and more throughout. Enlightenment is not this badge that you earn. It's this in the moment awakening. It's the truth of being alive and awake and aware and living from direct observation in every moment. It's not an accomplishment. It's a moment-to-moment experience. And some would say it's only achieved by going back to the basics in every fresh, new heartbeat moment.
Sure, if you think it's an accomplishment, then how can you be enlightened right now, happy right now? You can't. You think you're going somewhere, but it's really not going anywhere. You're just waking up to the truth. That's it. It's a journey of 0 steps. I just find it so amazing. It's amazing, but I find it so funny. Amusing, that's the word I was looking for. Amusing.
Well, that's another of the keys that a lot of people talk about, is that being able to find the amusement and being able to let go of that programmed response of taking myself so seriously. That's essential.
Yeah, and I have practice in laughing, so I think that might have, I think that was very beneficial for me to go through that. I used to run a laughing meditation group, and we would laugh about nothing. We wouldn't like try and make ourselves, find something funny to laugh about. We would just laugh for prolonged periods of time, and it was amazing how it's really just like doing a meditation, because you're so in the moment, because the laughter feels so good. And then, it's like I had so many experiences of just laughing, and then just, boom, I get the cosmic joke, and then I'm laughing so uncontrollably. So, and yeah, I had the realization during one of my bouts of laughter that nothing is inherently serious. It's only serious if we take it that way. And that one brought me such joy.
Well, I appreciate the call, and then the comments and the questions and the laughter. And I will look forward to the next time we get to chat. So thank you for the call.
Thank you.
I realize that we're down to our last couple of minutes here, so I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Welcome, Jeannie Ryce.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. Appreciate it.
Have a wonderful show.
Thanks.